Hey, John Gilroy here. Today, we're going to talk about recent developments in attack surface management. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Vinay Anand. He's a chief product officer for a company called NetSPI. Vinay, how are you?
Doing well, John.
I just want to settle things for our audience. It's NetSPI.com, but it's called SPI, NetSPI. Now, the reason I have you guys on is because, I do federal interviews, and we know about red teams and blue teams. We know about attack and counterattack. I mean, it's almost like spy versus spy in the old Mad magazine. So we know about these attack and counterattack. However, I think we're so cocky here that we don't realize that it takes place all over the world in commercial worlds. And so I thought we'd drag in Vinay and say, well, okay, you guys are 9 out of 10 banks. Well, what's going on here? What do you guys know that we don't know? Or what innovations can you bring to make the listeners' lives easier? And that's the only reason you're here, buddy, is to make the listeners' lives easier and talk about your company. And I think part and parcel of this is there's a local company called Hubble that many people may know about, and you've kind of integrated. Now we have 2 and 2 is 5 kind of situation. So, Vinay, maybe a quick summary of NetSPI and this Hubble situation, how you can help our federal listeners.
Yeah, John. So NetSPI's primary focus is to detect vulnerabilities in customer networks in their IT organizations, detect where applications and services are vulnerable to attacks, help prioritize them for our customers, and help them remediate them. So we discover issues, we prioritize them, and we help them remediate. We do this using multiple mechanisms. We have products, we have platforms, and we have people. We have trained about 250 people in the company. We call them consultants, security consultants, or security agents. And these are the people that are developed deep expertise in different parts of the IT estate, internal network, external network, applications, IoT, mobile, cloud, mainframes, you name it, right? Any part of your IT organization, up the stack, hardware, software, we have developed expertise. Our people go in and identify and unearth where vulnerabilities exist. Either they're not patched, they're not configured properly, they're using an old version of software, or it just is buggy, and an attacker out in the internet can find a way to exploit it. So we go and find it first. That's why we call it proactive security. We try to be proactive. Before bad things happen, we want to identify these issues in our customer networks and help them fix them. So to do this, as I said, we have about 250 plus organization called pen testers, penetration testers. We have built platforms that automate much of what they do. We have built products that customers can deploy for very specific use cases. And you talked about attack surface management. Attack surface is the name given to the entire IT estate because all of that is potentially a subject of attacks. Just as in warfare, similar terminology. You said red team, blue team, attacks, very similar terminology. This is a warfare. This is cyber warfare. So we are here to protect our enterprise customers, our customers against the attackers. So the attack surface is essentially their entire IT estate. Now this is divided into external attack surface, which means what is visible to the outside world. Sitting at home from your side, for instance, on the internet, if you go to a particular website, a particular organization's website, what you see from outside is called the external attack surface. And then there is the internal surface, which is called CASM, Cyber Asset Attack Surface Management. That is your entire IT estate that's inside your network. So we look at both the external view and the internal view, which is how the attackers look at the networks. And we detect every way those networks are exposed, assets, applications, homegrown applications, applications you run from third parties, your network configurations, you name it, we look at it. We use various techniques, manual and automated. And you talked about AI briefly. So we do a lot of AI-related work. We test customers deploying AI, which is LLMs. We also use AI in our own products to automate a lot of what we do. That is the gist of what we do.
I was at your website this morning, and there's a reference to a brand new acronym for me, PTaaS. Now, I know about software as a service. I know about ground station satellite as a service, but penetration testing as a service. So if I can't afford your dream team of 250 attack specialists and I notch myself down to penetration testing as a service, or how does that fit in the discussion?
Yeah, so penetration testing is, if you look at the history of how it evolved, it's essentially individual people or groups of people going and testing specific applications or portions of your network. That's called penetration testing because they're trying to penetrate it from outside. Take the attacker's point of view, take the hacker's point of view, and say, can I hack into your network? Over time, what happened is, as this became more and more broadly used, there was a need for creating a dependable and consistently repeatable service. So we built a platform, and that is called PTaaS, Penetration Testing as a Service. It is the platform that our pen testers use to offer more continuous testing. And the platform maintains history, maintains your record of your assets we have seen. So you do one round of tests today, you come back a month later, a quarter later, or a year later. We maintain that continuity. We give you a way to log in, look at your reports as these tests are happening, stay involved on a real-time basis as we are doing those tests. So the entire process, using the platform and the people, combining technology and talent, is penetration testing as a service, PTaaS.
Well, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to report you to the Software Association because continuous improvement, I think they have a patent on that phrase, but you're taking this idea of continuous improvement, agile software development, continuous improvement, and saying, well, let's apply it to a pen test. It's not like, now, wait a minute, Vinay, we're going to do a pen test. We're scheduled for September. Okay. And then we'll be back in February. Well, what do you think is going to happen in those 6 months? I mean, there's a whole lot. And so this little continuous improvement from software development, I mean, it really fits almost perfectly in the service you offer, doesn't it?
It does, because look, networks and IT assets are not static. They change every minute, every day, every week. So you may test something today, but the posture tomorrow will be different. The posture next week will be different. The attacks that are coming in are evolving super fast. And now with automation, AI, they are becoming as smart as we are, maybe even faster. So they find newer and newer ways to attack assets. And they're not going to say, hey, you tested once and you're coming back in 6 months, nothing changes. They're on at 24/7. So we have to also offer more and more continuous mechanisms for our customers to stay on top of this. So the attack surface management product we have, external attack surface management, we offer a capability for customers to use this once, to use it continuously on a daily basis. We run scans. We show them changes that happen day by day, week by week, month by month. So that is the whole idea here, to be proactive, to be as close to real time as we can, so that there is not much gap between what you did today and what you see the next time. That allows the attackers that window of opportunity to go in and attack.
Let's unpack this Hubble thing again. So the acronym you threw out there was CASM, Cyber Asset Attack Surface Management. And there's another acronym that we're going to probably talk about, External Attack Surface Management. So where does Hubble fit in? Do they do one and you do the other, and now you do both, or you both do both, or how does that work?
You got it right. So till today, we've been focusing from an automation point of view on external attack surface management. We have a product, we have a service. We scope your entire external network. We find hidden assets. Shadow IT is what it's called. Some people open up, assets to the internet without IT approval, and you go and do M&A. You buy a new company or you merge with someone else. Suddenly, your external boundaries are blurred because you don't know what you acquired. So we are very proactive. We work with the largest banks, insurance companies, etc., to help identify all their external assets and which of those are exposed to the internet, which of those carry vulnerabilities. And as we said, either they are not patched or misconfigured or just exposed. And we do a very good cataloging of it. And we can do this on a, close to real-time basis. Now, what happens is customers are increasingly worried about what's happening inside the network also. And this is where Hubble comes in. Hubble has built very robust technology to look inside the network for similar things. So they scan your entire network. Let's say you have 10,000 assets in your network, workstations, services, cloud, on-prem, whatever. They will scan all of that, catalog it, and give you a very good inventory of all of your assets. So we do external, they bring the internal visibility. We're combining the two to give our customers this unified view. And beyond just inventory, which is important, because one of the biggest challenges CISOs, CIOs have is they don't know what's on the network. You would think this is simple, but I've been in this industry for 20 years, and we've consistently heard this complaint from practitioners. We just don't know what's in our network because new services come up, people bring up new workstations, new laptops, the OEM new software, run something, and it's never cataloged very well. So IT orgs, depending on their sophistication, either have something called a CMDB, which is a configuration management database that tracks all this. Sometimes they have spreadsheets. Sometimes they cobble together multiple ways of looking at it. A spreadsheet here, a CMDB over there, something else. So what
a sticky here, a sticky there. I mean, I've seen pretty casual documentation.
That you got it.
You have too.
So what Hubble helps is bring all of that visibility into one place on one platform, give them a unified view, not only of the assets, but they also do coverage. How many of your assets are protected by endpoint security, by an EDR? How many of your assets are protected by firewalls? Where is the gap? Where are you blindsided of all of your 10,000? So they do a good job of that. We do the external attack surface. Now that Hubble is part of us, we can combine these two and show you things like attack paths. If an attacker came in from a particular entry point, whether it's from outside the network or through permissive identities, through a misconfigured device, what is the likely path he or she can take to get to your key assets, your databases, your PII information, your healthcare data, your customer data, et cetera, right? So we show those attack paths. We can help prioritize and say, look, we can find 5 ways a particular asset can be exposed or attacked because we have this mapping of all of your assets and their interconnectivity. And out of these 5, we can also show you which ones are more likely to be exploited and how can you increase the resistance on that path by doing some remediation. That is the intent with which we acquired them. It all leads to something called exposure management, where if an asset is compromised, you also want to know what is the impact to your organization. Can I, as a bad guy, as an attacker, compromise an asset and use that as a base for me to go and do other things in your network? Showing that blast radius and saying this is the exposure associated with an individual asset is very key. And bringing Hubble into our fold and integrating the platform gives us the eyes and ears, the visibility to go and build these outcomes. So we are super excited having them on.
Well, here it's our hot day in June, and there may be people listening to this when there's snow on the ground. And so your website is netspi.com. There's a couple of blog posts there that I'm going to direct people to in the show notes. Is there a specific activity you want people to do if they visit your website, Vinay?
Yeah, read up on our portfolio, look at the chasm description we have. This is a very pivotal moment for us, integrating external and internal attack surfaces and visibility. Very few vendors in the industry offer both. There are partnerships and loose collaboration, but having them on a single platform, running this integrated approach is unique, and this is what is desperately needed today. So I would say have them read up on chasm and attack surface management, understand what we offer, a combination of services and products that addresses all of their use cases around proactive security.
Okay, let's come up with a use case here, since you brought up the topic. So my name is John Gilroy, and let's say I am a CIO at an agency A. All of a sudden, we have NetSPI scanning a system. I go, wait a minute, a typical federal agency might have 30 tools, 30 different vendors, every conceivable tool you can buy. Isn't someone going to identify you as, oh, it's Vinay, let's send out the police? I mean, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so when we typically do external scans, we get the company's permission. So they know that we're going to scan them. Otherwise, it raises all kinds of alarms.
Well, I'll bet.
So we usually work with them, get their permission, and we share with them the IP addresses from which we'll launch these scans.
I've been taking notes here, and I write down attack surface management. On Monday, I'll be interviewing a guy from Airbus. We're going to talk about laser communications in space, and the number of satellites are going to be up there in the next few years. I mean, guess what this is doing? It's increasing the attack surface. I mean, the attack surface is above, it's below, it's around, and here and there. So what's the magic sauce? How come you have an angle over another company in identifying the attack surface management for today? I mean, so what's your advantage?
Yeah, I'll tell you. The key difference here, John, is the ability on our part to bring technology and people together. We offer both and combinations. So here's what happens. When you have automated scanners that go and discover everything, as we do, you get a lot of noise. You get a lot of telemetry back. And you have to find a way to sift through it and prioritize it, validate it, and you curate what you see so that you can show customers what's most important and most urgent. Otherwise, if I just show them everything I scanned, there is so much noise and what we call false positives that most of the time customers don't find a way to make sense of it and they ignore it. If you look at the biggest hacks that have happened in the industry to date over the last 10 years, majority of those were identified by some product or the other. But that was lost in the noise because they raised a log or an alert, and it was one part of 10,000 logs or alerts that were raised, and nobody knew how to focus on them. So the biggest problem in our industry is not identifying where the exposures are or where bad things are, but focusing on them and prioritizing them. So because we bring people along with it, our experts can curate and look at things that the systems are generating and identify what's most important. Now, we also have pen testers, a lot of them, 250 plus. And these guys can go and very surgically look at specific applications or services or networks and bring almost, close to 10, 15 years of knowledge that they have acquired to each of those engagements, which a product typically doesn't have that history or perspective. So when you combine these two, product does the broad, heavy lifting of scanning and identifying and generating data, and our experts looking through it, bringing their own context and perspective and their knowledge to unearth which ones are more important than the other. That is the differentiation we provide that very few others can provide.
That's a good answer. I've always wondered about that, and I think it's maybe a filtering opportunity or something. Okay, I'm in Virginia. You're in Minnesota. I'll tell you something about Minnesota, buddy. A lot of the houses up there have outside pools in the back, above ground pools. And so if you were to walk through a neighborhood in Minnesota, in the suburbs, and you saw a pool and you walked in and we said, look, there's a leak in that pool. Great. Now what? Then you go back in your car and you drive back to your office. I mean, so it's one thing to do penetration tests. It's another thing to, manage your techs and know something bad's happening. But this is the big question. Now what? Do you patch the pool? Do you go get a beer? I mean, so what about the next step? The next step's got to be solving the problem, right? I mean, what to do, or maybe even just practicing solving the problem. Maybe having a breach attempt, and do you have a playbook? What are you going to do? I mean, that seems to be the next step here. This whole conversation has been leading to this.
Yeah. So every pen testing engagement, you got it right. When we find these vulnerabilities and exposures, we help customers figure out what it takes to remediate. And then once they have remediated, we go back and test it again to validate that fix actually happened and it works. Same thing with our products. We have a way to tell customers what is missing, what is broken, and how to remediate it. Customers prefer to do it themselves. So we offer services to do it, but most customers, and I agree, they're sensitive about their assets. They want to manage them, fix them themselves. But then we look again after they've fixed it, validate it. If these are products, automated products, then we are scanning repeatedly. So if we identify vulnerability today, you go and fix it. Tomorrow we can show you that fix actually works, because when we scan it again, we can see that vulnerability is gone. It's been remediated. So the remediation part is very important. Think of this as a 3-step process. First, discover, either manually through our pen testers or automated through our products and platforms. Discover everything in your IT estate. Discover assets, discover vulnerabilities, discover exposures, discover attack paths, etc. Then prioritize. Use our insights, the insights we have gained, years and years of doing this, and help customers prioritize which ones are more important, which ones are more urgent. Also depends on their assets they're protecting. right? So there is a customer angle we bring to this, their context, and say which ones are more important to fix and remediate. And the third part is partner with them on remediation, help them figure out how to remediate, and then retest it when it's done. That completes the loop. And you do this in a nonstop fashion because assets change, configurations change, attack surfaces change. Technology evolves. 10 years ago, we were barely talking cloud. Then we had microservices, Kubernetes, and then serverless, and now AI. Every 2-3 years, there's a new technology that evolves, and that actually throws a spanner into everything we're doing. It's a double-edged sword. It helps us do things better, faster, cleaner, but also gives the bad guys an opportunity to do the same thing and find new ways to attack us.
I'm listening very carefully to every single word you say, including the word spanner. What's fascinating about this conversation is that most of the conversations I have, I say, well, here's the problem, Ralph. Oh, the answer is AI. Here's the problem, Mary. Well, the answer is AI. But when I ask you about specific problems, a lot of times what you'll do is you go back to our 250 well-trained experts that can, and it's like, well, finally someone figured it out. I mean, there's got to be I think the pendulum's going to swing back to this human being thing, where I think the humans may be the most vulnerable part of this equation, but they're the strongest part of the equation too in solving this. And I think what humans can do is they can prioritize better than I think a lot of our artificial intelligence systems can. And so they can do, what medical doctors have to do in emergency situations. They have to triage. We know that word. You're going to get to surgery. You're going to die. You're going to wait. One of those things. And I think that's what's, a differentiator for you. So when you're in the plane back to California this afternoon and someone says, what's your differentiator? You say, human beings. Oh, that's old fashioned, isn't it, Vinay?
Look, systems are important and automation is important. AI, very important with LLMs and Gen AI and all the efficiency they bring. They help us automate more and more and process data faster and faster. So it's invaluable, right? But without the context that a human can bring in, a trained human with the insights and perspectives they have, this always falls short. The last mile, the last bit of things you need to do to close the loop always comes up short. In the security industry, depending on which analysis you read, there are some 3 to 5 million people short for InfoSec operations. So customers are struggling to find the right people to staff them to do these kinds of things. Automation goes a long way. We are investing heavily in platforms and automation to keep up with it. We want to give our customers as much automation and intelligence as we can in the product. But overlaying that with our experts becomes invaluable.
Well, I think the next time we have a conversation, maybe face-to-face in DC here, we're going to focus on these 30 tools that I mentioned and the platform that you just mentioned and say, well, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those? And I think that's an important part of this discussion. But unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I am running out of bad jokes, which is terrible if it happened to me, and including a joke about above-the-ground pools. I mean, that's pretty terrible. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Vinay Anand, Chief Product Officer at a company called NetSPI. That's NetSPI.com.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.